American archaeologist Professor Neil Schmidt has been studying the Mogao Grottoes, a World Heritage archaeological site in the Gobi Desert of northwestern China, for the past 35 years. He lives nearby in Dunhuang, and today he's going to introduce us to two friends whose ancestors first arrived in the city in the early 18th century, during the time of the Qing dynasty. He's also going to take us to meet the animal that made Dunhuang a trading crossroads on the ancient Silk Road, the Bactrian camel. Dunhuang occupies a strategic position in the arid westernmost extremes of the Heshi Corridor, which was an important ancient Chinese trade route. There's been a settlement here for at least 2,000 years, but the city has changed hands many times since then and has been inhabited by many different ethnic groups. That's why, to some extent, this ancient Silk Road market town can be thought of as a city of migrants. Dunhuang's days as a major trade center are long gone. Today, it's known for a different kind of wealth, the cultural kind. 25 kilometers southeast of the city is a world-class heritage site, a series of Buddhist caves known as the Mogao Grottoes, some of which are over 1,000 years old. One of the first things visitors these days see is the Red Pavilion, known as the 9-story pagoda. The iconic pagoda covers Cave 96, which houses the Northern Colossal Buddha, the world's largest enclosed statue of the future or Maitreya Buddha. The imposing clay and stone statue is 35.5 meters in height, and when it was built in 695, during the reign of Tang Dynasty Empress Wu Zetian, it was originally covered by a 4-story wooden structure. A 5th story was added not long afterwards by Guiyi commander Jiang Huixian. Over the next 1,000 years, the pavilion was repaired and rebuilt time and time again, changing shape until the 4-story pagoda became 9.
So I'm standing here in front of the 9-story pagoda, and what many people don't know is that it was actually only 5 stories. And so there's this great photo from 1924 after an earthquake that shows the very top of the building exposed, with the head of the Buddha visible to everybody. And it was after that locals took to refurbishing and rebuilding this into what is now the very, very famous 9-story pagoda. So I have a good friend by the name of Dai Shengdi, and he works here at the Academy as a guide and interpreter. And I was really intrigued to find out that his ancestor's name is inside the building behind me. Dai Fengyu was someone who helped preserve this building at the end of the Qing dynasty. So this afternoon we're going to go visit Dai Shengdi and talk to him about his family and about his work today here at the Academy.
During the Spring Festival holiday in 2021, Dai Shengdi invited Professor Schmidt to his house to tell him about his family's history.
Oh, difference here. So I play some music. Wow. 这样大吗？是这样子。啊，哇，你可以吹一下。我会一点点。这个主要是娱乐的。This one is much easier. Okay. The music is takes a lot of part of my life. I didn't know that.
我本身就在莫高窟工作，做讲解员，然后每一次去讲洞窟的时候，在这个藏经洞，尤其是存放了佛经这个地方，有一块建筑，它是3层楼的一个建筑，这个建筑比较新，它是1906年修的，06，对，到现在就100多年。 那么然后呢，在藏经洞的对面有一块碑，上面写了这个建筑的修建历史，其中有一个名字叫做戴凤玉，而我正好就姓戴。然后呢，我就去查戴凤玉和我家是什么关系。
以前你不知道你的家跟这些人。
以前我只是听说过，但是我们有时候说我攀一个亲戚，说我家族多厉害，感觉像是在吹牛一样。这个没有根据。这个实际上是有一次我带我妈妈去看莫高窟，然后我妈妈认出来这个名字，她说这是咱家的亲戚我爷爷是这个戴凤玉的孙子那一辈的，就是他都已经80多岁了，所以这一代人已经全部走了，没有留下来。我的爷爷是我有印象的，爷爷是我有印象的。因为小时候带我走的时候，他曾经说过，说家族以前的产业特别的大，有这个商队。因为在敦煌这个小地方，你如果要经商的话，主要是做生意，一方面是跟这个苏北的那个地方的人，敦煌市的南部有这个苏北蒙古自治区，还有这个哈萨克族的自治区。那么说跟那些人可以做生意，交换这个皮草毛皮，动物的毛皮，从敦煌出发去往这个兰州或张掖酒泉，或者是这个金海，还有这个西安这些地方去做交易。比方说敦煌市现在吃的蔬菜，大部分是从兰州和西安运过来的。那个时候没有汽车的话，他们是驼队我们叫骆驼客，就是牵骆驼的这些客人叫骆驼客。那么那样子是发家的然后我爷爷他曾经提到过，就是说当年我们要做一个很大的一笔生意，骆驼客呢牵骆驼，可能上百头那样子的，驮着货物就去远方做生意。他就去这个大佛跟前祈福，祈福说，如果说这单成了，能够安全返回挣到钱，我愿意把挣到的钱拿出来一大部分去做功德。结果是挺真的成了。后来之后呢，他就花钱就修96窟大佛前的这个5层楼，然后又花钱修的这个3层楼。在敦煌我们有一个老话，就是我妈妈告诉我经常说的一句老话，叫做钱不走空路。这个比较难理解。比方说，你把你的钱给那个乞丐，这个钱他最终会回到你的身上。我比方说我的钱帮助了你，它最后会回到我身上，叫做钱不走空路，它绕一圈之后又会回到你的身上来这个观念。那么关于佛教来说，我们这儿的人从古以来就做功德这么一个想法，就是说我这一世积的功德，我下世会给我来回报。那么最简单来说，就是我去世之后可能会去佛国的世界，会去极乐世界。所以就是我们一直在捐钱，不论是古代敦煌人还是现代敦煌人都会去捐钱。
对
都会捐钱。
那个想法完全一样。
对，一样的。这个也是功利的想法，这也是美好的想法。对。这个贿赂佛这地方做了功德，我下辈子我能去好一点的地方，或者我下辈子轮回转世，我生到一个有钱人家庭里面，就这样一种想法。对。还有就是它也是为了后代子孙，我祖上积德，我后代子孙他也会受到保佑的意思。这是比较我们民间朴实的一种想法。
哇，特别有意思。The repair of the 9-story pagoda, in fact, was done for a number of reasons: to preserve a structure, but also to show faith, and also to generate merit. So this idea of merit, gongde, is really fundamental, both to the creation of that structure, but also to the Mogao caves themselves when they were created 1,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago. And in that sense, there's a remarkable continuity that spans all this time. The motivations for repairing these structures or building the Mogao caves hasn't changed. It has to do with the creation of merit, mostly for one's parents or grandparents, but for family. And it really exemplifies this fundamental concept of filial piety.
It wasn't just the Dai family that looked after Cave 96. During China's Republican period, the pagoda was rebuilt by another local merchant called Liu Jide. His transformation of the cave's appearance set the tone for today's 9-story pagoda. As a result of Liu Jide's intervention, more wooden eaves were added to the cave, and 4 more wooden porticos were added to the pagoda, turning it into a 9-story structure.
So this afternoon we're going to go visit the grandson of someone whose name is also inside the building from the refurbishment in 1924, and his name is Liu Dinghan. And we're going to talk to him about his experiences growing up here in Dunhuang with that relationship to the recent past.
啊，没不拖不拖。哎，你好。研究院工作。是，对。
他是我们院里面的特聘教授。特聘教授。
我今年寿龄80，57年就从小学毕业了，到62年考到药材公司，一直干到98年退休。
我们这个刘氏家族，他这个祖籍在什么地方？
陕西甘泉，甘泉是一个小县。我们先祖为了户口，
对，
打听敦煌可能好就是普兴到陕西，到张掖、酒泉，咱们家一直转到敦煌。
Today, that 1,700-kilometer journey takes almost a day by car. So when Liu Dinghan's ancestors arrived in the early 18th century, it would have been an epic trek. The Lius have been living in Dunhuang for more than 200 years, so it's fair to say they've become locals. Liu Dinghan's grandfather was involved in the reconstruction of the 9-story pagoda in 1937, during China's Republican era. There's an ink painting of the pavilion in his living room. It was painted by Jiang Zhongxian, and it features miniatures of Liu Dinghan and his grandfather.
他去了毛驴儿，带着我爸爸他们。就是我爷爷，咱算孙娃子嘛。
对，爷爷带着孙子去莫高窟那么一个场景，骑着毛驴那么一个场景。这个画也特别珍贵。提到一个人叫胡开儒，是您的？
开儒我爷爷这个外孙兄弟
啊，对。我记得胡开儒他当时在这个瓜州那儿做这个榆林窟的像所长那样的感觉。
好像就叫他那个保护那儿，就他一个人读了10年。
So there are two people, Liu Dinghan and Hu Kairu, and they're actually cousins. And they worked together at both the 9-story pagoda. Hu Kairu also went to the Yulin caves, and there he spent years and years cleaning out the caves, removing the sands, protecting the site. And what this represents is these types of actions at these local spaces, these local sacred sites, was actually a kind of family tradition.
老家谱。
这是老的家谱还是？
老家谱。这文革好多以后，最后清官清出来了，你看这。
哇，这难得一见这。
这里有的很对，是，这都金子多了。
这精度的。哇，这精度的，是中华民国，你看
就是我们
刘继德
刘海家谱
他是4代宗刘继德续修当时这个修9层楼的时候，这个刘继德爷爷他有没有一个什么愿望发愿？为什么要修这个9层楼？
因为呢，本身就是幸福，挣了点钱，但是他就要做他积德小事情。
是为了积功德。
积德。
对，积德。
就是修桥啊，修庙啊。最后就是把这千佛洞这个9层楼可一心要把它，本来呢自己要出钱自己修了，最后工程好大，才首先捐了1000块钱。
对。
可以动员商家各方面这么筹资才。
So it was during the Republican period that local people came together and rebuilt the structure into the very, very famous 9-story pagoda. And we have to remember that it was local people who sacrificed their time and money to preserve this structure for us today. What most people don't know is that during the Ming Dynasty, this oasis was abandoned. It was this desolate place with very few people. And it was only during the Qing Dynasty that people returned here to bring back agriculture, to bring back culture. And it was people like those ancestors of Dai Shengdi that once again began to interact with these caves and make them a living site of religious activity and belief.
Liu Dinghan and Dai Shengdi's family stories give us a glimpse of the contributions Dunhuang's new inhabitants made. They also demonstrate the new arrivals' love for this rugged land. They are the ones who built the Dunhuang of today and who have lovingly protected its legacy for centuries. Professor Schmidt also has an interest in the animals that made ancient Dunhuang possible, the Bactrian camels that can still be seen roaming on the outskirts of the city. Camels are known as ships of the desert. They have been used for thousands of years to carry people and goods. Camels carried the precious goods that travelled the ancient Silk Road between China, the Middle East and Europe. They are hardy animals and can survive for 2 weeks without water and for up to a month without food. That's why they are indispensable partners for anyone seeking to cross or live in the desert. Today, camels have been replaced by faster, more convenient forms of transport. But near the Mingsha mountain east of Dunhuang, they are still being raised by herders. These camels carry tourists, not goods, and generally don't go much farther than the top of the sand dune that towers above the popular temple at Crescent Lake. During peak tourist season, there are as many as 1,000 camels there every day.
So I'm very interested in camels because they were, of course, a major means of transport. And for example, during the Tang Dynasty or before and after, they were also a means of sustenance in so many ways. And I think it's crucial that we understand in a kind of hands-on way how camels were used, how they were raised, what their disposition is. Also, how long, for example, does it take to go from the oasis of Dunhuang to the Mogao caves, and what that distance and those logistics have to do with the way the caves are functioning, and also in terms of rituals in particular times of year. All these things are important in that they depended a lot on animal transport, and especially camels.
Professor Schmidt knows a spot to ride camels far from the bustle of Mingsha.
你好，魏老板。
哎，你好，你好。
我是研究院的。啊，好，是。你们好。那个，现在的话，先学习骑一下，是不是？可以。
所以你养骆驼是不是？
哎，对。
所以养骆驼有什么困难？有什么特别麻烦的？
养骆驼最困难的主要就是训练。刚开始，因为骆驼它的野性都是挺大的，我们一般训练的骆驼都是从3岁开始训练啊，3岁的时候开始训练。是。因为到3岁以后，他就可以参加工作了，他基本上就属于青少年一个阶段了。
那你觉得他们聪明吗？
聪明，对。你比方说，像到冬季的时候，我的骆驼放在这个山里边，让他们自己去找吃的、找喝的。到第4天、第5天的时候，他们自己就可以回来自己找水喝，因为他们有一个记忆力，就是有一个固定的饮水点，他就可以自己回来记住这个地方。
所以这两多年大？
这个是5岁
，15岁
，5岁
啊，5岁啊
，5岁。这个年龄比较大一点，今年13岁了。这2只呢都是母的，性别上面都是母的啊。这个就是年龄大一些，这个颜色它是一个黄色的。我给它起的名字叫老黄，因为它是我的驼队里边年龄最大的一个。
这个一般都是那个打头的骆驼是。
对，
最乖的。
最乖的。他们喜欢这样的。
哎，对，
可以。
这样挠痒痒的时候是他感觉到最舒服的时候。所以说他就一动不动的就在享受着这种挠痒痒的。
是的。怎么那么可爱的？
就是现在他已经就是趴下了，已经做好就是让你起来准备工作了。来，sit down，看吧。说你sit down。
需要口令吗？
这个只要动作，有时候也就可以了。因为他工作多年了嘛，他都习惯了，只要身子轻轻往前一拉，他就站起来。来，
是的。No, it's fascinating to see, for example, the speed of the camel. They don't move particularly fast. And this is interesting because it gives us an idea of how actually long it took to go from place to place through the desert. It's not a swift mode of transport.
It is through understanding camels and learning for himself the difficulty of traversing the desert that Professor Schmidt has been able to gain a greater appreciation of the difficulties Silk Road merchants faced. And the hard-won nature of Dunhuang's cultural resilience, standing strong in the desert for millennia. Eventually, he plans to put that knowledge to use by retracing a forgotten branch of the Silk Road that snakes across the remote Qinghai Plateau. Professor Schmidt hopes to follow in the footsteps of Song Yun and Hui Sheng, two Dunhuang monks sent to India in 518 to bring back Buddhist scriptures to China. But that is a story for another time. Next, please continue to follow Professor Schmidt's journey in Dunhuang.